Okay, we're recording. Okay. Hello, everybody. It's Mike B, the Silver Devil, the Dark God of the Clippa with Uncle Al. We're here for another episode of our podcast. Al, would you like to start us off?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Look,
Oh.
I wanted to sort of speak, if I could, from a perspective of some poor bastard who lives in the land of Oz, which is the largest island continent in the world. Stick that up your ass. Anyway, it's right down near the arsehole of the world in the southern hemisphere. And I got into magic back in around about 1974. I was 10 or 11 or whatever. And life was pretty hard. The only stuff around was library books and shit you could get from the newsagent and whatever, but nonetheless, I battled my way through. Years later, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, I joined the oldest right-hand path functioning magical lodge in the Southern Hemisphere. The OPA, the Order Phoenicus Aureae, and I learned a lot of really good basic magic from that group. While I was there, some transitory members forced me to buy a book and read it called Libernal and Psychonaut by Peter James Carroll, who's actually a physicist. Anyway, they forced me more or less to read this book. And it was a life-defining thing. It put a fuck on my head. It put a zap on my head, and it just really changed me. One of the things in the books the book stressed was atheistic magic, not relying on spiritual entities or whatever, but doing it yourself. Back in the early 1990s, two other magicians and I used to work at a place called Petersham, and a couple of suburbs away is a suburb called Camperdown. There was this guy there that was a magician, and another bloke I knew who worked at St. Peter's, he was a magician. It was pretty central, so we used to meet up on a Thursday afternoon and do magic. And because we all got into Libernal and Psychonaut, we were doing this stuff called sigil magic, which is based on the work of Austin Osman Spare. Look it up. There's lots of stuff on the web about sigil magic. Anyway, what we did is we sat there and we worked out of, 10 or 12 different sigils. And we said, no, this one's about this, right? You remember it, put it in your mind, right? Do the chant, get it in your mind right now. This one's about this, do the chant, get it in your mind. And we put them in a bag. And then a week later we turned up and one of the guys there pulled out a sigil and said, does anyone remember what this is? And the other guy said, yeah, I remember what that's about. Okay, so he put that aside. Does anyone remember what this is? No one remember what this sigil's about. Okay. So we sat there looking at the sigil that we'd made, and we chant the chant for the sigil. And this went on for 20 minutes or more. And then we do some other stuff and we left. And when we came back a week later, we'd sit there and say, well, what happened in your life? And very often, we'd come up with stuff that had happened in our lives. And when you looked up what the sigil was about, it was spot on. There was one time there where we could not work out what the sigil was about. And then we looked it up. And what it was about is, I will not use drugs. And what all of us noticed was, and me especially, because I was working as a lawyer at the time, and I used to like to come home and have a few drinks. But what I noticed was during that week, I never had time to have any drinks, and all these other... No, I never had drugs at all. And we couldn't even... We used to do weird stuff like, I will see a woman in red stiletto heels. And sure enough, you'd see a woman in red stiletto heels. All that sort of shit. And what that taught me was that you can be an atheistic magician. You don't need deities or whatever to help you. It's all about your subconscious. Getting your subconscious to work without the so-called psychic sensor coming into play and destroying your magic. After that, I got into the thing about paradigm. Sigil magic, I got into a thing called paradigm magic, which is also in Libernal and Psychonaut. And the only people who don't have paradigms are those who live in mental institutions. Paradigms are the tools that everybody uses to explain the world. If you're a Marxist communist, well, the world is explained through that paradigm. If you're a manic Catholic, well, the world is explained through that paradigm. And it was about swapping paradigms. For example, for 3 months you had to become a Marxist, Leninist, communist, and join all the groups and do all that thing. And then the next 3 months you had to join some fascist group. And then the next 3 months you had to go and join a trout fishing group. It was all about putting different zaps on your head. And I got into paradigm magic. That led me into Michael Aquino's Temple of Set. Michael Aquino's... Huh?
Temple of Set, yeah.
Yeah,
Temple
Michael
Set.
Aquino, he was in the military, and he was one of the foremost guys that developed psychological warfare. And there's an essay online I read years ago, it's probably still online, probably on the Temple of Set website, about Michael Aquino's first essay on psychological warfare. And it's presented in a really nice, we're doing this to save lives way. But when you read it from my perspective, you realise you can use it for a lot of other shit. So people say, well, how did that help you magically? Okay, what I did back in 2010, I had all these nut jobs post some of my black propaganda, and I'd been working on this black propaganda for 4 years, and it was published as a 15-page essay. And David Icke found out about it and copied it. He stopped the publication of his book, The Lion Sleeps No More, in order to get this 15-page shocking deathbed confession published as an appendix in his book. And I read the reviews, and there was one guy that said, that shocking deathbed confession was the best bit of his book. But anyway, I did it to try and influence people, and I did it using black propaganda because I'd studied all this shit, paradigm magic and psychological warfare and whatever, and that stuff is still going around the web, and it's been translated in any number of languages, including Japanese. And I sometimes sit and wonder about the poor harried salaryman sitting on his train typing out this shit into Japanese. But anyway, that's what I do. I do that as an ionic magician, trying to change the direction of the world. So that's the sort of stuff I got into. The other thing, chaos taught me that magic is not about ritual. It's not about ceremony. It's about magic, everything. When you're walking down the street, you can do magic. The other thing was, and that really freed me up. The other thing was, I've never really had the ability to have my own magical temple. And then I realized, more than 20 years ago, that this world is Satan's temple. So I can do my Father's work anywhere I like, in his temple.
Yep. I got one for you, Al, on that same line right there. Hold that thought. I want to tell you this one because I realized it just today. If this is our life, we are the God of this life. We must take control of these spirits sometimes, and we must put them to work. And I realized that, I am the God of this life. Wow. I'm the one that's pulling the string. I'm like, that's the shit. I'm like, for the first time, it felt real. I just had to add that. I'm sorry, brother. Keep going.
Look, that's the other thing. The other thing I did was I learned how to use the rune LHAS, which is the peace sign. And if you stand with your feet together, and I recommend if you've never done this before, and this shit works. If you've never done it before, do it on ground. If you can. If you can't do it on ground or grass or whatever, you can do it on concrete, but it's best if you do it on ground, in bare feet, at least for the first few times. Feet together, arms upstretched in the LHAS position with the palms facing skyward, and then call in the energy you need. And what you'll find is it will gather just above your solar plexus. And people say, that's just your muscles getting tired. Okay, great. Now, when you can't hold the pose anymore, keeping your arms straight, and you've got to keep them straight, put them down on something you wish to consecrate, or push them in the direction of where you want the energy to go, right? If you want the energy to affect somebody, put your hands, and you'll feel it running down your arms, and you'll feel it coming out of your palms. And when it's finished coming out, your palms will get itchy. What I do is I give them a bit of a scratch, and then I give them a real good clap to stop that effect. And the more you do it, the quicker the energy will come, the greater the energy will be. And I do this not because I can call up spiritual entities and whatever, but I'm left-hand path. The right-hand path is very strong. What it says is, if you obey, pay, and pray, when you die, you'll be a drop, and you'll be subsumed into the ocean of God, and you'll become divine because you're part of the ocean. Left-hand path says you are a drop. You've got to try and get as strong as you can, as big as you can in this fucking life. So in the next one, you can go on and get bigger and bigger. And one day you might be the supreme fucking God. It's a long journey. So if I'm trying to become God, why am I relying on bloody spiritual entities all the time when I can gather this power and I can do this shit by myself? And Chaos told me that I didn't have to rely on wands and knives and shit. I could rely on things like computer and internet and all that sort of shit, and email and all that stuff. And that's what I do. Anyway, that's just the other thing I want to say. Yeah, apart from Live and Owen Psychonaut, which I highly recommend, there's another book around called Lords of the Left-Hand Path.
That's a great book. That's a good book.
Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. Stephen Flowers, a.k.a. Edward Thornton. Yeah, but there's a lot of interesting material in that you can use, for your own. And look, I'm a bit of because of where I grew up, because I was young when I got into this, I took a pretty autodidactic approach to magic. And the only reason I use the expensive word autodidactic is just to prove how educated I am. No, I mean, someone's self-taught.
Well, there are going to be times that teachers come into our lives and then they leave, and then we have to be on our own for a while. I've had a few come in at certain times, but most of the journey is on your own. If you're in the left anyway, going to be on your own.
Look, don't get me wrong. I use spiritual entities, but some of the time when I use a spiritual entity or ask a spiritual entity, petition for help, I say, give me an idea. What can I do? And damn it, I get the idea and then I do it my fucking self.
You know how I like to do it, Al? I like to call the entity, and I like to work with them on the spot in the ritual. Like, we do it together. Like, it will instruct me on certain things to do, on how to make a formula come together, right? And I'll work with them. So it's a cooperative effort. And I find they work a lot harder when they see you getting off your laurels and doing something with them, rather than just delegating the task to them. It's like it becomes a we instead of just you. And that we is a muscular beast. You can lift more weight. And I like that a lot. But you're right. You don't have to rely on these entities or these guys. You don't have to supplicate to them. You don't have to kiss their ass. You don't have to give them offerings. If you can do it yourself, you should. And you really shouldn't be calling on entities for anything that you can't do yourself, in my opinion. Because if you do, they're going to know immediately that you don't have the juice to do it. They're going to know that. And then they're going to tax the shit out of you. And you might not even understand in what ways they're going to tax you, but they will. They absolutely will. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, you're a nasty magician.
If you can do it yourself, man, you ought to. But if you're busy and you don't have time for this or that, then there's time and place for delegation. There's a time and a place for a pantheon that you can build up to. But one of my mentors told me with spirits too, it's easy. You can talk to them just like you're talking, like you and I are talking. Talk to them just like that, like they're right in front of you. And I'll be damned if they really don't respond to that, Like, they really do. They really do respond to that. I can't tell you why exactly, but, you don't have to go into states of deep theta trance or anything fancy like that. You just, imagine he's right in front of you and then just talk to him and he'll get the idea. He will. They're so telepathic, Al. When they show up after you call them, they already know why you called them. They know why already. They can read your whole life like a book. They're in a place where they see our entire lives stretched out in front of them. So, there's no tricks, there's no surprises for them. They already know what time it is. For us, on the other hand, that puts us at an extreme disadvantage. There is no parity of power between us and them. Let's just keep it real. We can hurt them. We can make them sorry for fucking with us. But there's no parity of power, really, in general. That puts us at a disadvantage. And because of that, I tell people to be very careful with who they're talking to and what deals they're making. Because these things, they see a lot farther down the road than we do. Now, they like to be considered gods, and I'm not sure what I would call them the gods of hell. That's what I would call them. I think they're great, though. But you just got to be careful because they're smarter, they see further, and they've done the song and dance 1,000 times. You're not going to get over on them. You know, that could happen. You know,
one of the things I found was the main thing these entities want from you or any other magician is that they be known and respected.
yep,
And content.
gratitude. Yep,
You promise to spread their name and fame, you'll get heaps of results.
yeah, yeah. I kind of built a career out of that. I think. I think I
Well,
built a career.
I started off with Nama. I started off with Nama, and years ago I had an issue with a neighbour next door. And people think Nama's there for sexual love and money and all. Yeah, but Namas are the most material entity with which I have ever worked. And I had this issue with a neighbour next door, and I said to Nama, "What must I do to fix this problem?" And instantly, the idea came to me, and I did that, and the problem was fixed.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, everybody
It
does
just came
think
straight
sexual
away.
thoughts about her. Everybody does think sexual thoughts about her too. That's interesting. I had a buddy, an Indian magician, who's also an Agori, or am I saying it right? Agori? Yeah, I think I am.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Agori's like if the Indian pantheon and the Indian religion is right hand path because it has priests that intercede and blah blah blah. It's a right hand path structure. Even though it's polytheistic, it's still a right hand path structure. The Agoris are like the ones that are in rebellion to that. Like if you're going to have an order that's the right, you create the left automatically without even trying to. But, you just do. Like Christianity creates Satanism. It's like it has to. Otherwise, there's nothing's going to happen. So the Agori mystic, he was really, really, he was really insightful. Like they do some really strange practices that even you and I might like get kind of wide eyed over, like some strange shit. But he told me something. He said, preparatory immersion creates the bond between you and like Nama, and that preparatory immersion, brooding for a few days before the actual working, concentrating on it, thinking about the spirit. When we're thinking about them like that, they think of us also. It's a two-way street, Al. It's a two-way street. That's why when she shows up, like, and you ask that question, she's already got that link. She's like, wow. Before you even finished asking the question, you had the answer.
Yep. Can I just say something about what you said about how Christianity creates Satanism and all that shit? My magical teacher he's now dead, but he was a guy called Barry Salkills, Frater CD, and he was my right-hand path magical teacher, and he taught me a great deal, actually. And years later, after the physical order had broken up, he was living a few suburbs away from me, and I used to go down and visit him and take him to lunch and give him presents and shit. And one day there I told him, I said, teacher, I have become left-hand path. And he looked at me and said, well, without the darkness, there'd be no light.
Yeah, that's the damn truth. That is the damn truth. Well, you can't have one without the other. And yeah.
But he didn't condemn me or anything. He didn't condemn me and say, oh, you arsehole and whatever, and da-da-da. Just without the darkness, there'd be no light.
Well, they consider the act of judgment itself is attributed to Gebura and the left side and evil. Like so for him not to judge, that actually was pretty wise for a right hand path magician. I will say that was pretty wise. Yeah, it's pretty smooth. At least he walks the talk. That's good. Yeah, man. Like, what else was I going to tell you about? I was going to tell you about something. What was I going to tell you about? Like, what do I got to do today? I was going to tell you about today. Today is an exciting day, Al. Like, I get to do a curse breaker today. This is going to be fun. Hex breaker, I don't know if you've ever done that for anybody before, but that's like one of my least favorite things to do. like if you start meddling with people's mojo, people's curses, if you're not careful, you can end up getting it yourself. I've had that happen. Yeah. You've heard that too, haven't you? Yeah. A lot of people don't realize
contamination. Spiritual contamination.
Yeah, exactly so. And like you could take the egg and rub it all over yourself and throw it in your neighbor's yard, and it's not going to fix certain shit. Like certain shit, you got to have a real breaker. And you got the bowl, right? You got the bowl. Did you? Your brass bowl? You got one? You got
Pardon?
the brass. You got the brass bull, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh my god, that works great for Hexbreaker. Oh my god, that's what I use.
I'm still getting into it. To be honest, I've been putting my time. I've been putting my time into the stuff that's been happening internationally.
Oh god, yeah, that's
And
fun.
anyway, we won't talk about that. But anyway, yeah, there it is.
Oh, okay. Two pointers for everybody that's listening about the bull. If you're listening about the bull, I'll give you 2 pointers. Everybody, make your hand as flat as possible, keeping it flat. When you strike the mallet 3 times, you go bing, 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 and then the outer rim, you want to keep it nice and tight, like so that it never leaves that lip or that rim, and that will create the vibration. You want that vibration will push like concentric circles of force anything that shouldn't be there away from you.
I've
Good
already
shit.
noticed that. I haven't used it much, but I've already noticed that. And the concentric circles of force, to me, tend to be like an electric blue or a deep
Yeah.
blue.
Yep. That's kind of how I see them too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you can use it to like enunciate the spirits too. Like when I'm doing my opener, I'm like, Tohu, Tohu, Pesek. Like chaos and darkness, the formless void, Klitos stuff. And like the spirits love that shit. They start, a lot of this is performative. A lot of this is performative, but you know what? If it works, it works. Once you find the ball and you know where to run to the goal, I mean, you don't want to change the winning formula too much. Once you've got it.
No.
But I love seeing how they snap right to attention. I mean, like I think a lot of them like leadership too well. I think that I really do. Like not commanding, like you go clean the latrine. More like,
Yeah.
hey, I need you to clean the latrine this afternoon. I know that sucks, but I'll give you something in exchange for it. I'll give you a little reward. Something like that. Like they like direction, leadership. Otherwise, chaos just doesn't have anything to do. The devil's hands, like the idle hands, are the devil's tools. That's
Look, the thing is, these entities are spiritual. They're not physical. The problem we've got is we're physical. We're not spiritual. So we trade.
yeah. We take care of them here. They take care of us there. It's a beautiful
That's right.
system. It's a beautiful system. Yeah,
But if you can do it yourself, do it yourself.
If you can, you should. If you can, you should, because you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of bills. And what happens when you forget to pay one of these guys? Tell us about that.
Oh no! Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that shit. Okay.
Oh,
This is just two old magicians. Just two old magicians giving you a little bit of advice. When you make a promise, and listen, if I make a promise to a spirit, I fucking write it out, and I don't just write it out. I actually work it out so there's no ambiguity. That I use as fewer words as possible. It's as clear as buggery, and I put it in my diary, and I sign it with my blood. I use a match. I use the end of a match, and I chew it, and I dip it in the blood, and I sign my name. That's it. It's done. And mate, when you do shit like that, you've got to keep your promise, because if you don't keep your promise, you'll only not keep your promise once. That's just a little bit of advice from your good old Uncle Al.
Yeah, I co-sign that too. I saw somebody get a 6-figure job. They came to me for help for a job. I got them a 6-figure job, and then their attitude was, "I got that job for me. Fuck it." And then they didn't pay the spirit. Oh man, the spirit came right back through and got on that ass. An entire year of that job turned into a miserable, nightmarish experience. Like you got the job you wanted, but you didn't want to honor me, so I'll poison it for you. That was the deal he did. It was terrible. It was just, I mean, we're talking about like horrible work experience, like PTSD style. And I'm like, well, and the spirit didn't tell me he was going to do that. He just did it. And I'm like, and if he would have told me, I'd have said okay anyway. But yeah, man,
That's
like
the
you
other
got
thing
to.
about this. When you get a relationship with spirits, they tend to do things on their own, and
Yes.
for
it's true.
you. And sometimes you don't necessarily appreciate or understand what they've done, but you never asked them to do it. They just sort of did it on your behalf.
Well, sometimes I light cigarettes for them too and put it out there. And they didn't have to ask me, so not a big deal. Well, But you
Fair
give and
enough.
take back and forth. Sometimes I'll do a painting for them without them having to ask, just because I like our interaction. I like what we've done together, and here's a painting. And they like the effort that was put into it. They like the gratitude that was felt. They like the genuine appreciation, and they love the praise, especially when other people hear it, because that creates doors for them. And that's what they want, doors.
Do you use chocolate much?
Occasionally, I use that occasionally. I like there's a rum that they really like, and that's called Tanduay. It's a local rum, and also brandy. They love brandy too. But chocolate, tea, cigarettes, incense. You know, depends on who it is and what they like. Like
Sure.
once you know them personally, like you kind of know what their things are. Like Dantalian, Dantalian. He always likes some Persian music in the background, some Persian folk music, and then like some chai tea, like something like that. And I give him a poem, like a Robert Frost poem, and I read it for him. And he likes poetry. Shit, I know that sounds retarded, but that's what he likes. I mean, he makes him happy. I don't mind doing it. And then we make music. We make music. It's good. It's good.
Good.
But if you can do it yourself, you should. I'm going to come back to that point.
All right, we
Oh,
covered everything.
well, I think we did. I think we covered everything else. All right.
Hail Satan.
I'll see you now. I'll see you in a couple weeks, brother.
See you,
Peace.
Mike.
Yep.
Bye.